So I don't think that I had time last week to upload the first class about Pikuach Nefesh, but basically we learned that it's from the word mefakchim alav et hagal, that if somebody was in a house when there was an earthquake or some kind of other collapse of the building, then it says in the Mishnah mefakchim alav et hagal that you uncover um, the rubble, uh, and they actually gave a whole list of, even if you don't know for sure that there's somebody in there, even if you are pretty sure that they're dead, it doesn't matter. And some of our world history, I don't think it has anything to do with Israel, but some of our world history proves that people could survive in a mining tunnel or other places for tens or hundreds of days, and so I think that's why it's important to learn the root of mefakchim alav et hagal, and so in Yoma and Masechet of Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur is even more strict than Shabbat, it says that you uncover the rubble until you reach the person's nose, and then you put a feather next to their nose, and if there's any movement, then you know that they're still alive. Today, obviously, we have other ways of determining if people are alive with heartbeat and other kind of activity. And so I'm not a doctor, and I definitely am not a first responder in fire department, but all of those things are important to know as an introduction, and I'll upload the class right after I upload this one or together. So, any illness that doctors normally consider dangerous or that regular people would make haste to save a patient suffering from it is deemed dangerous halachically, even if only a small minority of people die because of it, and therefore justifies desecrating Shabbat. So, if you remember, many, many moons ago, we talked about a baby is automatically considered sick because we don't know where it's hurting them, and even if they have a low temperature, it could be very dangerous for them. And so that's again the parameters. Thus, one may drive a woman in labor to the hospital, even though in a clear majority of cases she can safely give birth at home. However, one may not desecrate Shabbat on account of illness and risks that are generally not considered dangerous. So if somebody is just having a small fever and they're an adult, and maybe they just lost their appetite, but otherwise they're okay, we don't break Shabbat for them. And later we'll learn about mental illnesses, which are sometimes even more dangerous than physical. So the sages defined certain conditions as dangerous. These include internal injuries, severe pains or wounds, or internal bleeding, injuries on the back of the hand and foot, that is, infections and dangerous cuts, very high fevers, scorpion or snake bites, even if you are 99% sure that the snake is not poisonous, and eye afflictions. The sages determined all of these cases based on experience, and today's doctors agree in principle, though they use different terminology to describe the conditions. This is not the place to expand on the definitions of a life-threatening condition, but there is a general principle. If those present think that the ill or injured party might be in mortal danger, they immediately do whatever is necessary to help them. If they need to call a doctor, they should do so. If they need to drive the person to the hospital, they should do so. If you remember when we learned the laws of Hadlakat Nerot Shabbat, we learned that even a blind person who is in labor or otherwise in pain, and this person says, please light the candle, even though there is no way in the world that they'll know if the candle was lit or not, for the ease of her mind, well, the example is given about a woman giving birth, but for the ease of this person's mind, we do light a candle, even though it's a biblical prohibition. And again, it's because they are concerned about us being able to see properly, and so we light the candle. So just another review from our past classes. When the people nearby do not know whether the patient might be in danger, they should ask a doctor, nurse, or medic in the vicinity, or they should call a doctor. If the doctor thinks that the patient might be in mortal danger, even if the patient claims that their condition is not dangerous, they must heed the doctor because the doctor knows better about what conditions, and basically we describe the symptoms. If the patient maintains that they are in danger, then even if the doctor thinks they are not, we must desecrate Shabbat and take them to the hospital to be examined. So this is because the heart knows its own bitterness. That's from Mishlei, from Proverbs chapter 14, verse 10, meaning that sometimes only the patient can assess their own condition. Similarly, if a sick person demands a certain medicine or treatment that, based on their experience, could save their life, we heed to them from experience. We only rely on the patient's intuition on condition that makes some sense. However, if their illness is known and they demand a treatment that the doctors believe is ineffective, we heed the doctors. By the way, that's also the halacha in the laws of Ishut, of proper relationships, where a person says that he's lovesick. We don't break the Torah law because of their imagination, their wild imagination about breaking that law of erva. Similarly, if a sick person is known to be hypochondriac or excessively fearful, and a medically knowledgeable person is certain that they are not in any danger, we do not desecrate Shabbat on their account. And again, it's based on previous experiences. If somebody imagines that they're sick and all kinds of things, and they come to the doctor and they examine them and there's nothing wrong with them, and it happens again and again, then we can consider this person. And right after we read this last paragraph, I'll say a very quick joke, if you'll let me. If in an effort to be pious, one asks a rabbi whether to desecrate Shabbat in order to help someone in mortal danger, they are considered like a killer. For while they are asking, the patient's situation may deteriorate, and the Torah commands us, do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor. Lo ta'amod adam re'echa. Furthermore, the rabbi whose students ask such questions is reprehensible, as he should have taught them in advance that saving a life overrides Shabbat and does not require consultation. By the way, the same thing happened with Pinchas, where the Talmud says that if Pinchas stopped and asked Moshe or Aaron, his grandfather, whether or not to kill Zimri, they would have answered no, because there is no court and there's no kosher witnesses, and so the answer would have been no. But that's why Pinchas was given the Brit Shalom, because he acted out of the knowledge that this was Chilul Hashem, and so that's why Zimri deserved to die. So about the joke, if you'll allow me, what do they write on the hypochondriac's tombstone? And the answer is, I told you so. So we'll stop there, and I think you got it.